Hey, everybody, it's Tim Gillette, and this is the Tim Gillette Show, and we're back here with another episode, which means I found another coolest person on the planet, and I'm going to get you to know who they are today. Now, Kelly Wittman, I've had like a brief conversation. I've glanced at her website. Other than that, this is what I'm going to find out today. You're going to find out at the same time. It's the cool thing I like about this show. We get to find cool people. We did learn something. All right, which I'm sure we'll share throughout the show, that we are at the opposite ends of an interstate. And then we'll talk about that interstate, I'm pretty sure, because of the industry we're both in. But anyway, let's bring up Kelly and see how she's doing. Hello, Kelly Wittman.
Hi, Tim. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to chat with you.
Yeah. So, I've seen very little of like your videos and stuff you did. So I really know very little about you, other than I learned you live in Minnesota.
That's the most important thing, right? We can just wrap up right there.
How long have you been in Minnesota?
I grew up here. So I was born in St. Paul and had thoughts about leaving and moving away, but it just never happened. I'm a big family person and my family's here. So it's kind of hard to leave.
Oh, I'll tell you, I got a story about St. Paul. If you know, like the interstate, is it 94 that comes into from Wisconsin?
Yep.
All right. There is a tractor trailer weight station there.
Yes, right outside of once you cross the border, yep. Correct.
And the 1990s, I drove tractor trailer and I am from Pennsylvania, and I go into the shop getting ready to leave, and they're inspecting my trailer, and they said, "You've got to go through this one inspection station at the Minnesota line, and they nail our trucks every time." And I remember getting the first time I ever drove there, because they told me that. I asked some truckers. I drove in across I-90 and came up a back road in the middle of the night to deliver. And I'm there and they're like, "So did you get stopped at the weight station?" I'm like, "No." How did you get by it? They all wanted to know how I got around it. And I'm like, I took a different route in.
A little workaround.
Yeah. There was two of them in the country that were known when I was a truck driver. All right. And this has been, 30 years since I've drove truck. There were two of them. That was one of them that was known. And the other one was in Tennessee.
Oh,
and funny. I knew them both, and I knew how to get around them.
It's a good skill to have.
I guess, you know what I mean? I did it legally, though. I got around them legally because there's different highways that you can take to avoid them. And then most people would never think about that. They would just go, "Well, I got to go through this path. It's the shortest distance." Anyway. So you live up there in Minnesota. I moved to Texas in the early 2000s. So our late 90s, early 2000s. I was born on the East Coast, and I actually had friends from St. Paul and Minneapolis area that I worked with in Philadelphia. One of them was a radio producer, and he grew up in Minneapolis, and he was down in Philly as a radio producer for a couple of years, and I worked with him for a while, and then one day he moved, and I haven't seen him since. So
we have to get back in touch. I am a little biased.
Sure,
I like it here, but yeah.
I'm surprised on the internet he hasn't found me yet. Yeah.
Well, there you go. Got some homework for yourself. Maybe you can find him. See what do a little reconnection.
Yeah, that's what we should do. So anyway, I understand that you are in like the brand strategist type thing, kind of similar to what I do in coaching and consulting.
Yeah. So I have Wittman Company as my business. It's a brand strategy and design studio. And we work primarily with service providers and really help them on the strategy piece. So, how do you want to communicate? And then also on the visual side. So things that most people normally think about when they think of branding, like your logo and your fonts and your colors and all of that fun stuff.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I logo. Yeah, I've got, as you know, I've got my logos down below, and I'm in the middle of redoing my Simple Easy one because of the fact that I got it trademarked. So,
that's exciting.
Yeah, well, I got the brand name trademarked. Blog and VideoCon, that's what's my event. I can't trademark that name, but I can trademark that logo. As you see, that's the first poster I ever had made for Blog and VideoCon. It's on my wall now.
To commemorate, right?
Yeah. So, image and what it looks like to people is important.
Mm-hmm.
I have now gotten down to where I'm picking, certain company colors that, that I want to associate with my brand. And I took this color analysis wheel that someone did once, and I read about it, but I'm not really into that. I just picked two colors I like. What is your logic that you use in helping people if they come to you? Well, Kelly, how do I change my colors?
There is this kind of philosophy, I guess, of it's called seasonal color theory and seasonal brand theory. And it's a mixture of color psychology and seasonal theory. And it's this idea that every business and brand is associated with a certain season and based off of characteristics like how they want their brand to be experienced and how they want people to feel. And those particular seasons have certain colors that will help elicit those responses and those emotions and those feelings. So when I work with clients, we start with that strategy, which is, how do you want people to feel when they experience your brand? What kind of thoughts do you want them to have? If you were to be a fly on the wall, what words would you want them to use when they talk about your business? And based off of those adjectives, that's really how we then determine the visuals and specifically the colors. So if a business owner says to me that, I want them to feel excited and fun and motivated and friendly and upbeat, then we're going to choose colors that have more of a high saturation. So maybe like a bright pink or a bright green, bright blues, versus if they say to me, I want them to feel more relaxed and rejuvenated and grounded, the colors are going to be a little bit more muted and not have that saturation and that pow in your face, so that they really evoke those types of feelings and use color psychology in that way to spark the certain feelings that they want their brand to have and how they want their brand to be experienced.
So now, are you working mainly with companies or personal people on branding?
A little bit of both. So it depends, right? So I generally, the folks that I work with, they are providing a service and they might have a small team. So they're branding their business. It's kind of a half and half. So they're either branding themselves and doing a personal brand and selling themselves or their expertise, or they sell a service like they're a marketing, consultancy or a food consultancy, and they have contractors that work on behalf of their business and their brand.
Yeah, I mean, because it really, I noticed some things different. Like I have a personal brand, all right, but my company, I wanted that to have something distinctive on the color, look, and feel to it. So it's two different things. And my previous companies, I never went into branding. All right, I was in some sort of auto business or something like that, and I never thought of this stuff. You know what I mean? I didn't think about it. And when it came to my personal brand, when I was doing it in 2010, if you don't know my story, is part of it was I was connected to when I knew Zig Ziglar, and he told me not to cut my hair. I had long hair, and he said, "Don't cut your hair. No, that's you." And that became part of my brand of my look. You know what I mean? And I was wondering if that was stuff that you worked with on your customer clients. Is some of it in a personal brand on a look like that, or is it as a presentation look?
Yeah, we don't dive too much into them as their personal aesthetic. It's more, I come from the belief of, because they're providing a service, a lot of the conversations that we have is more about how can you provide that service and what's the experience like from that service perspective. So not necessarily like them as a human, but more of, I'm huge on customer experience and I'm huge on customer service. So that's really where my zone of genius is. So that's usually what we tend to focus on and talk about of how does your brand play into providing a great, consistent and cohesive customer experience from start to finish. So that's where a lot of our conversations usually circle around.
Well, I mean, and it's interesting you say that because, one of my mentors is Frank Kern. Do you know Frank?
I have heard of him, but I haven't followed him too much. So tell me more.
Yeah. Frank Kern, internet marketing guru guy. All right. Got started doing it. And he looked like a surfer dude, had long shaggy hair, always in a t-shirt and flip flops. And his brand was built that way because someone said to him one day, well, when people follow you, what is it? The one thing he says, well, they want to be able to hang out at the beach. They don't want to be stuck in an office. They don't want to wear a suit and tie anymore. They want to hang out at the beach. So he dressed that way, right? So that they would be that. All right. And it's interesting you say that, about the experience, because I can hear this Frank rolling in my head. I think I've been in his inner circle for 5 years. Rolling in my head, hey, let's use the oldest trick in a book by showing we can help them by actually helping them. I mean, he repeats that over and over again, and it sounds very similar to what you said. I want the help him with the experience. Yeah.
Yeah. What an interesting concept, right?
Yeah. Why not give them an experience? And well, that's it. And it's one of the personal reasons why, Kelly, in my business, I do events. I do a virtual event. I do a live event. I don't do a hybrid event. And I was like, why? Because they're two different experiences.
Yeah. And you
You know
get
what I
to
mean?
be intentional about that. And I'm sure because you understand that they're two different experiences, then you can have some strategy and intentionality behind the decisions that you're making for each one, right? And then
Yeah.
you're able to really hammer in and hone in on what those distinct experiences will be for each one, which makes it that much more fun, right?
Yeah, it does.
For both you and I'm sure the visitors and the
Yeah.
attendees.
Well, I mean, with that very thought process, all right, you helping one of your clients who comes up and goes, well, Kelly, I got my business has two sides to it. How do I create the experience? Are you now helping them go, okay, let's divide it and let's make your brand sell out and experiences on both sides?
Yeah, and it's a little bit different for everyone. I mean, that's a personal question, right? So I've worked with, for example, I'm working with a travel. She's a personal brand. She has a travel blog, and then she also does travel agency services. So she's got two distinct arms of her business. One is more on this content creation side, and then the other piece of that is more on the service side. So it's really leaning into, the questions that we had talked about is, what do you want them to be linked, and what are the benefits of that? And for her, it made sense because they really feed into each other. But sometimes that flow isn't there, which is okay. So I always like to start with that question of, does it make sense for them to be linked together, and can they support each other, and can they help each other grow? Or does it make more sense to separate them out and have two distinct businesses? So for example, my start in the entrepreneurship space began when my husband and I started a home renovation blog. And that then led into me discovering digital entrepreneurship and doing digital marketing, which then led into branding. And when I first started, I offered services from our blog, North Country Nest, and then it made sense to just separate them. And now they're very two distinct, separate entities. I talk about the blog every once in a while under Wittman Company. But for the most part, they're very separate because they have two different goals for, the type of audience that they want to serve and who they want to help and support.
Yeah. So I started the same way, a blog. All right. I started with a motivational blog and it's still up, but I don't add anything to it anymore. But the same concept is I separated it because I realized my coach said, Tim, you're talking about life on your blog, but you're a business coach. You're helping with people with business. It just separate the two, dude.
Did you feel like that was it easier? Did you have, once you made that clean cut, it seemed to have a little bit more flow and made more sense? Or did you have a little bit of tension when you did separate them?
I had a very emotional attachment to the blog. All right. It was called, my original blog was called Rocker Life Coach. I had long hair. All right. And I basically started out by just talking about motivational stories. And we found the niche with it I was starting to tell inspirational stories based on like rock and roll songs that motivated me. So like the blog title had the song title, and it was a cool concept when it worked. But then when it came down to, I wasn't making money with it. It was a great thing I enjoyed doing, but my business was helping people start blogs.
Yeah.
And it was never my intention, but that's what I ended up doing and speaking. And my route went to, rock and roll keys to business success, to rock around your blog. All right. And then into the, blog and video, and then now into simple, easy marketing, where we cover several different aspects and make them cover together. But that initial thing you asked, all right, how did I feel? Emotionally, I'm like, oh man, that's my baby. I don't want to let go of my baby. But the transition, like I can tell you now, when I learned to let go and let the business develop to where it needs to go, my business grows, as opposed to, well, let me just, I like my little business here. No, let's not let it grow. I want to keep my little business here. I'm not that guy anymore.
Yeah. Releasing. That's the hardest thing. I feel the same way about our home renovation blog. I haven't posted anything for quite a while. We recently had a baby and we've been in projects. And then to your point, you figure out where your time and your energy and your attention is best spent. And when I think about, I'd rather put my focus into the business that is actually growing and is making us money and supporting our lifestyle. And they're emotional, a lot of feels around, taking a step back and because you put so much energy, with blogging, it's so labor intensive and it's hard to not get attached to it, right? Because you put so much of yourself into every single post and, to have it reflect you.
Yeah, but as I grew out of this, and you could tell me, I've done home renovation like videos because we renovated this condo the way we wanted it. And it was at the time I was creating Blog and Video Con, and I was also renovating a rental property condo at the same time. So, but like I did all this stuff, but everybody's like, well, why don't you go into real estate and renovation blog? I'm like, no, not interested. Because I don't want to do the work that's related to it. All right. It's like, I would rather be the Property Brothers. I want to be on camera. That's all I want. After the cameras, let everybody else do work. So, but the renovation blog, did you guys renovate the house to start that? Or was that just something you were doing?
No, we renovated. So it was our first house. We're still currently here. And we moved in about 5.5 years ago, and we renovated the night that we moved. We scraped popcorn off of our ceilings the day that we got the keys to the house, and we've been renovating ever since. And my husband's family isn't from local here to the St. Paul, Minneapolis area. So we started the blog as a way to give them kind of insight into what was going on since they weren't able to visit as often. And then it grew from there, and I fell in love with the process. But to your point, the difference between, blogging on the home blog is you have to stop and then take pictures and then make sure the lighting is right. Because if you have crappy pictures, then it doesn't look as good. It doesn't have as much of an impact on, whether you're doing a tutorial or just showcasing the space. And, then you have to edit the pictures, and you have to, format the pictures and then put them into the blog post and then actually write the post. And there's so much that goes into it versus blogging for Wittman Company. While it's still a lot, it's so much easier because you don't have all of these different steps. I can just sit down and write and then create a post, and it's not, adding in all.
Yeah, you go buy 2 pictures and throw up. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this in blogging. I know you did it now personally. You did the renovations. You would have taken your own pictures. In your business blog now, photos was one of the biggest things that I had dealing with a lot of clients in the early days. And I actually bought a photo to do a series and found out that I didn't buy it from the right person. And I got a cease and desist from somebody else who really owned the photo.
Interesting.
Yeah. Now, do you have people come to you and say, well, I want to do a blog. Where do I get my photos from? Do you tell them, hey, no, don't just Google it and grab the photo? All right?
Yeah. So if we're talking about like creating their website, 100% I recommend just working with a brand photographer and getting them done. Especially with the people that I work with as a service provider, when you're selling your service, you're essentially selling yourself, and being able to put the face to the business name just adds a lot more of a personal connection. And I think that it does a great thing for building trust with that potential audience. So that's always my first recommendation, of just hire a brand photographer and get them done. And that being said, it's not always feasible for everyone. So then that kind of goes back to what I was talking about before with your colors, of thinking about, what do you want people to think and feel when they experience your brand, and then using the photos to help tell that story. So if you want to have, people to feel excited and motivated, then using brighter photos. If you want them to feel a little bit more grounded, then you can have some photos that are a little bit darker. Hey, Anita.
And hey, Paul.
Hey, Paul.
Yep.
So to that point, then yes, I think stock photos are great. There are some great free Unsplash. I don't know if you've ever used that or heard of that yourself.
Splash, yeah,
that's a really good one. Yeah, and they're all free, and they're really great. The only downside, of course, to that is you run the risk of having someone else use the same photo. Yes. So it doesn't look as personalized to you, but for folks that are on a budget, it's okay.
I started switching and telling my clients to go to Canva. Even if you have a photo, put it in Canva, all right, and put some of your words into the photo. Now, if someone else sees the same photo, it's got a different tagline, different words into it. So not the same. That was a way that I went around it. And Well, first of all, I stopped using anybody's photos unless I knew who took them. I knew who was behind the camera. After getting one cease and desist, I learned that.
Well, that's a scary thing.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is cropping. I mean, cropping does a really cool way to alter the photo, but just showing it from a different perspective, right? So if you have, maybe a big scene or something, then you can maybe zero in on someone's hands on a computer if you're doing something for business, or
Yes.
You can play around with just the different aspects and styles based off of cropping the photo a different way, so it doesn't look as similar to what else is out there if you're using something like a free stock photo site.
Well, when we go on the content creation side, then something else interesting that I looked at now your YouTube channel. And I thought this was very unique on your YouTube channel. I mean, you're like me. You have like a few subscribers, but yet you look at the views of your videos, like they outnumber your subscribers. I'm like, okay, is there a trick to that? No, anyway. I'm sure you didn't mean to do that on purpose, but like I store tons of videos on there that people watch, but they're not necessarily subscribed. Yeah. So.
Yeah. I'm slightly embarrassed that you looked, because I haven't posted anything in quite a while.
Since February. I looked at the video since February.
Yeah, thanks for calling me out on that. If it makes,
I'm betting there's going to be one there tomorrow.
Yeah, well, in my defense, I did have a child in early April, so I was getting ready, to birth a human.
It's okay. Yeah.
But I think from that, one of the tricks that I actually learned from a search engine standpoint, keywords are amazing, and being intentional about the words and the titles that you use for your videos. Right. But the other thing that I've been going back and doing the past couple of months is adding in my videos to the relevant blog posts that I have on my website. And it was kind of a chicken and the egg thing, as I ended up writing my blog post first, and then I decided that I wanted to do YouTube, and I did videos based off of the most popular blog posts that I had. And then I put those videos in the blog posts, and that's where they're getting views as well. They're embedded in there. And that's been really helpful, of just having people consume my content in a different way. I love to read, and and listen via, podcast. I'm starting to dabble into YouTube myself, but I realize that some people like to, consume that way.
That's
so
my
it's
brother, Jason. This is a childhood friend of mine that just popped on.
Oh, how fun.
I have not seen him in ages. I just talked to his sister a couple months ago, but anyway.
It's always cool when that happens. I mean, the beauty of social media, right?
I know it is. So, I mean, and I actually, this morning I was on another podcast, another lady who was on my show a couple weeks ago. And she asked me to think about being famous online. And like, there's a weird thing. Like, someone finds you on Google. I don't know if you've ever had this. And then they go, well, you're famous. And I'm like, no, I just know how to use the internet properly.
My search engine optimization is just on point.
And if you're not number one on your search name, on searching your name, all right, you got problems out there, right? We bought,
I have a funny story about that.
Oh, please, I want to hear this. This is what the show's for. I want to hear this.
Yeah, I had a girlfriend from college who was helping me do just some contracting work. I got started, I think I had shared doing digital marketing services, and part of that was Pinterest. So I asked her, like, hey, do you want just to make a little extra cash on the side from your full-time job? And she was like, yeah. So I trained her on how to schedule pins out in Tailwind, and she did that for me. And I added her to my website as a marketing coordinator. Well, this last job that she was doing, and I totally forgot about having that out there, right? And once I stopped offering digital marketing services, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, I took that page down, but it was still live. It just wasn't on my menu, and you had to actually type in the URL to get there. So fast forward to, I don't know, maybe 4 months ago, and her boss pulls her in during the evaluation, and they asked, like, do you have another full-time job? She was like, no, why are you asking? Well, we Googled you and we found you on this Wittman company. Like, what is this? She's like, why are you Googling me to begin? I mean, that's a whole nother story. But then to the point of, she's like, Kelly, great SEO. So I showed up when they Googled me and they found that page that you created highlighting me for your work.
No, mine was we had not this condo. When we bought our condo complex, we bought a 1-bedroom first in 2014, and then we bought this one when this one came available. And the 1-bedroom at the time, the lady had it on the market and dropped the price, and then we came in with an all cash offer because it was we'd sold a house, and for us it was like a steal to buy a condo and pay cash for it. We're in, let's do it, right?
Yeah, why not?
So this lady comes to give us keys and stuff like that. And the whole time she's talking to us on the stairs, she's talking to my wife, looking at me, talking to my wife, looking at me. All right. She went and Googled us because like she was like, her house was on the market for 4 months and got no offers. And all of a sudden this couple comes in and pays cash.
Yeah.
She Googles to find out who we are, why we have this amount of cash laying around. And she goes, I Googled you guys. You're famous. I'm like, no, I'm not. I just know how to work SEO. That's it. But I mean, with SEO, that it is, it's a skill. You actually work at doing things so people, when they Google search, they can find you. Mm-hmm. Has that brought up for you? You and your husband are on vacation somewhere and someone comes up and goes, oh, Kelly, I know you.
I haven't had anything on vacation yet. Some more so local networking events where I've had a few people that have said, oh, I follow you. It was more when I was active, I think, on Instagram, and then they would find content through like Pinterest and then jump over there. I don't do Instagram anymore, so I don't have kind of that asset or that side. But I think the best compliment that I get is, and I don't know if this is for you too, but when I meet someone and then they say, oh my God, you are exactly like what you are online. And for me, it's just like, oh, yes, it means I'm doing something right. Thank you. And it's just that I think is the coolest, having someone say that and go out of their way to say, you're the same. There isn't that disconnect between meeting you in person versus what your writing style is or what you show up on video or, whatever type of content that they're consuming. I love when there's that continuity. So that's probably the best feeling.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that has been part of my signature that I've done since 2009 when I started was I write my own social posts. I write my own content. All right. I do all of that because I wanted when someone met me to go, oh yeah, you're who we see you as. And, I know so many people out there who build the website and then they plug in some AI and never tweak it. Mm-hmm. And I just or they get a writer and the writer is just a little bit different. And I was fortunate. My editing was done by my wife, who was a great grammar person to be able to go through and edit to keep it still sounding like me, even though.
And she knows you, obviously.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I hope so after 11 years. But that you bring up a key point in that. All right. So many people out there, they want to go out and create content and they want to go, well, how do I go viral? Forget going viral. Just keep being you. Yeah. So that it's congruent. And I found that being you, like when I went on video for the first time doing videos like live streaming, which was with Blab in 2015. It was so easy for me to just get on camera and not worry about, well, where's my script? What do I say? Yeah. And yeah. I mean, are you having clients that come up to you and go, well, should I write a script for this? And you want to go, let's just record it and see how you sound first.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest, one of the biggest tips, especially when it comes to writing your website copy, is it's so hard to sit down and write and then sound like yourself. Is I always just recommend, record yourself, that you're just talking about what you do in a way that you would. So if I was sitting down with you, just start talking and say, like, this is what we do and this is how we help you. And it's such a great way to then really bring out your voice because and then can transcribe that. And that's then your website copy. Yeah. I think we can get so stuck in our heads about getting it perfect and sounding professional and sounding right and, legitimate. And I don't necessarily think that that's what people are attracted to. I think they're more attracted to the human side and making that connection with you. And that's why when we, I sometimes laugh when people have that of how do I get more followers and, how do I go viral and how do I create a post that's really popular? And I always ask of, well, why, why do you want that? And, most of the time, it can be from that vanity metric place. But if we think about from an actual business standpoint, do you really need 100,000 followers to have a successful business? Or do you really only need like 10 clients? And should you focus on showing up well for those 10 people, or rather than chasing the numbers? And you can be authentic. It's a lot easier, I think, to have that authenticity and show up as your true self when you have that smaller audience and you can create that intimate relationship with them. And then really give them, kind of going back to what I was saying before, a really great experience.
Yes, and that's it. And I mean, I was very fortunate that I had, I had an interesting look, which was something that in my early days, I heard someone, in the TV series here in Dallas, a friend of mine was on a TV series, and one of the reality, one of the producers basically said, something you can do to help stand out is create some unique feature about yourself that makes people. And he did a spiky blonde, was it like a mohawk instead?
Sure.
Yes, that made him stand out. And most people don't look at look at Guy Fieri, the
food guy. Yeah.
If you go look at the old pictures of him, boy, he looks like this weird dark-haired geek. All right, but you look at how the personality he created about himself, who he is when he walks up.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And most people don't, it's a feature you change, not your personality.
Right. And it's more of the unique.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to position yourself, you're being intentional about looking at the market and what else is out there. And then how can I differentiate myself from the competition and having some strategy behind it. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. And exactly. I was fortunate with long hair that the weird one it was 2014, I think. It might've been 15 that I was walking through LAX airport and a TSA agent thought I was Tom Petty. I had to just sign something that said I was Tom Petty because he wouldn't give it up. He thought I was Tom Petty. And that's where we created the not Tom Petty brand for a long time, but it was a gimmick. It wasn't really me. And I really love this. Like you're talking about authenticity, and you look at how many, if you went through all the shows on iTunes right now or Apple, how many are video shows? How many of them have the words raw and unscripted in their title?
Mm-hmm.
That is the thing people want, raw and unscripted. They don't want, and I was on a mastermind 2 weeks ago with a lady, and she's like, well, I did these 5 episodes for my podcast and I'm still editing them. I'm like, just put them up, but I got to edit them. And I'm like, just put them up, see what happens,
There's always this, and I experience this too with myself, of this perfectionism, right? You want to put your best foot forward, which I totally understand, and it makes sense. But then at the same time, you don't go anywhere if you're kind of stuck in this indecision or perfection and wanting it to be in your version perfect, which there is no such thing. And then I finally take a step back and realize that, okay, let's just get it out there. And that's one of the things that I really talk about with my community, is that you don't get brand clarity until you take action. So you can sit here and think about what you want your brand to be, and you can go back and forth on picking the colors and the fonts, but until you actually put it out there and start showing up, then it starts to become more clear, and you can then pivot and change. And I think we forget that everyone's attention span is so short, and they're not paying attention to anything that you're doing anyway. So who cares?
So I have another friend from California. His name's Casey, and he tells people going to networking. He teaches stuff in networking. He says, you're going to networking and you're sitting there the whole time thinking about, man, I want to say the right things when I stand up so they'll remember me. And he's like, they're not even listening to you.
Yeah.
Thinking about what they're going to say when they stand up.
It's so true. To your point, then, that's why you do something memorable, like have long hair, and have that shtick, if you will, to make people connect with you in some way, because they more than likely, they aren't paying attention to what you're saying.
I have this unique way, Kelly, to get make sure people are attracted to me and do what I want. You ready to hear this? I'm going to teach you the secret right now.
All right. I want to hear it.
I have a podcast. Would you like to be my podcast guest?
Yeah, right. It's a great catalyst for sure.
My whole process, I teach people, is interview people if you don't have content, right? Then repurpose the content into a blog, podcast, video,
Yeah.
blog, just, yeah. But that is what I do so often. Rather than go out and try to find people, I just go out and interview people. And most of the time I find, like, the one guy I met at the networking yesterday, they're doing this iPutt thing, but it's like for putters, putting game for golf. I'm like, you should be on my podcast. He goes, to talk about my putting? I'm like, yeah. He goes, how's that going to work? I don't know, but we'll get you on and figure it out. He's like, that. I'm like, that's it. Just interview
Just
people
try
about their
it.
business, and
Yeah.
that's one of the cool things I found that has worked for me is I just interview other people about their business. Oprah Winfrey did it, and look at how famous she became. Just saying. Anyway.
Well, people love talking, right? And they love just sharing, and it's fun to also hear the conversations, but then also be a part of them, right? And then for you, you get to expand your network, and so it's just such a beautiful kind of cyclical way to support each other. And then to your point of not having any, I don't want to say any plan, but not having a very clear structure, like you're just going out there and doing it. So to that, woman who was like, oh, I need to edit more. It's like, just do it. And then you figure out for the next 5 shows what you need to do differently. And, you learn as you go. And I don't know, I heard this, have you, Jeff Goins, he's a writer, and he had shared this idea about, we forget that we think we need to pass over this idea of apprenticeship and that we should just automatically jump to the expert level. And we forget as humans that there's this space in between, like the gray zone of being the beginner to being the expert, of being an apprentice and learning and then taking that. And that's how you get to the expert level. And we don't give ourselves enough grace of that in between.
No, great points. So, well,
Hey,
I mean, yeah, it is. It's a great point, by the way. That's there. It's a journey. It's not, you know what I mean? It's not we've heard that in success stories. The success is not a destination. It's a journey. All right. And every step of the way, you are one step ahead of somebody else, but you know what? You're 2 steps behind somebody else. Learn from the one that you're 2 steps behind from and teach the ones you're 1 step ahead of.
Yeah.
Really, if we can make it that easy.
But it can be, right? And then we always forget, especially when you're in the thick of whatever it is that you're, struggling to do. We forget that it can't be easy. And it's just always a good reminder. It's something that I'm constantly telling myself of, what if this was easy and what would that look like? And it can be, and that's okay. And just lean into that.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, I mean, it's been an interesting conversation with you today. I'm just going to say, 2 people in very like businesses having a conversation about them on a podcast. No one had ever thought of that idea, I'm sure.
It has been a great conversation. Thank you very much for having me.
You bet. So I want to make sure, though, that people who do listen to the show can get a hold of you, all right, if they want to take this relationship to the next step. What is the best website, Kelly, for them to get a hold of you?
Yes, you can find me at WITT and company.com. And I, if you're liking this type of conversation, this is what I share. I have a weekly newsletter that goes out every Friday called The Branded Chat. And that's kind of the best place to continue that relationship if that's something that you're interested in.
That is such a cool, The Branded Chat.
Thank you.
I
thought it was pretty clever. I was, one of those. I'm just going to say thank you. We'll leave it at that. Thank you.
It's better than the Tim Gillette show. I mean, I had no originality in that.
Well, it's your name. That's original, right?
Yeah. Well, thanks to my dad and mom, I can't take credit for that. They gave it to me. Well, anyway, it really has been fun having a conversation. This has been a different conversation because I never thought the different things that I would just be comparing with you and going, yeah, well, I do this. Do you do this? Do you do this? Yes. Yeah. We went back and forth so much. So, hey,
that's the beauty of having, I don't know. I love that, right? Of talking about what's working and what's not. And we can get so siloed. It's great to just have open conversations and, community, right? And not competition. I don't believe in that. I love having those types of conversations. Well, so thank you.
There is 2 questions though I want to ask before I go to the closing on this. And that is one of them. I like to ask this to everybody, sure. Kelly, is when I was younger, I was like 21, 22 years old. I had a boss give me job advice. that became life advice. Till this day, I still live by the advice he gave me. And he basically told me at the job, pretend like you own this company when you work here. And that helped me take ownership of everything I do in my life. Did someone when you were younger give you advice that was like, that drives you to this day?
I would say more of a value that both of my parents instilled in me that I really appreciate. And that's just working really hard and being mindful and proud of the work ethic because that speaks for itself. And that was something that they really shared and showed us growing up, my siblings and I, of just get out there and do the work because that will reflect on yourself and who you are as a human.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And my other question I wanted to ask you was, all right, considering we're both kind of in the same industry, you have no problem sharing my information with your people, and I have no problem with me sharing your information with my people, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that unique that I don't want that. That might be a customer. I don't think that your customers are going to become my customers, but your customers will probably refer a customer to me.
That is the beautiful thing. And that's what I love about finding, other business owners that have that same philosophy of, you can help my community and I know I can help your community, and just having that coming from a place of serving, right? Rather than like, scarcity, right? It's serving.
Yeah, exactly. It's serving and not scarcity. And love it. And usually when it ends up happening in situations like this, for you, the guest, is we end up doing something together to help a customer. And I'm sure that's happened to you, where you've connected with someone and then you realize the two of you need to help a specific person.
Yeah.
So I've done it before. I've called up other people that are in our industry and go, hey, listen, I got a customer that's stuck. Can you and I jump on a call with them? Mm-hmm. And literally between the three brains, we actually then come out with an outcome.
Right.
And I've always loved that about this industry. We are in the business to help people.
Yeah. Right. And it always comes back. I mean, I don't know if you found this, but I know I found it for myself of when you operate from that place of just really wanting to support someone, it comes back to you. Might not be looking in the way that you think, but it always comes back in a positive way. And why not,
It does. And that truthfully should be a business practice for everybody. I think even listening here today is really understand it's all about, go back to the farmer. The farmer plants 50 million seeds to get 10 ears of corn. You know what I mean? And that's what we have to realize out there is me helping your community, Kelly. It's just, I'm planting seeds. I don't know where those seeds where they're going to blossom, where they're going to come from. But if I didn't plant them, I know that I would not have a harvest.
Exactly. Exactly.
So before you go though, Kelly, I've got my famous 9-question this or that game, and I know you're ready to play, right?
Absolutely.
All right. 9 questions. Here they are. I start out and asking this one to everyone. It's the easy one. Star Wars or Star Trek?
Can I say neither?
You're not into it? Oh my gosh.
I know. I'm probably turn it off. I'll just walk out right now. I honestly have never seen either of them, any of them, anything. So I am probably the worst person to ask that question to.
Do you have a friend? Do you like one of the Kardashians? I'm curious.
Absolutely not.
Okay. So good. Or you're good. Okay. You're good. Just making sure you didn't go somewhere or I know.
Yeah, no.
Well, how about this one here? All right. I know now that you have a young child. All right. Would you rather go to the zoo or the aquarium?
The zoo.
The zoo? Why?
Yes.
Why?
We have at Mall of America, there is a
I heard the Mall of America was a zoo. Oh no.
That it is. But they have underwater world. And I have realized that I'm very claustrophobic, and I am walking, under the water and looking up. I had panic attack the entire time that the water was going to collapse. So give me a zoo where I can be out in the open and breathing fresh air and not having claustrophobia attacks.
Before Mall of America was the biggest mall in the country, I worked across the street from what used to be the biggest mall in America.
Where was that?
King of Prussia Mall in Pennsylvania.
Oh.
Yeah. So
claim to fame.
And I think, it's unique. Yeah. That mall was the biggest one in America when I lived there as a kid. And then it went to, number 10, number 2, number 8, and it's been back and forth its whole life. Anyway. How about this one here? Dress up or yoga pants?
Yoga pants.
Yeah. You're in yoga pants now, aren't you?
I actually am not. But I was out in public before we had a call. Otherwise, I probably would be. And it's kind of hot here, so maybe shorts.
Yeah,
but
I wear jeans and button shirt everywhere I go. It's like I've learned it. Just same outfit every day.
Yeah, it makes it easy to get ready in the morning.
It does. So yeah, it does. How about this one? Hamburger or taco?
Taco.
Oh, girl, you got to come down here to Texas and visit with me. We got tacos down here.
I know. My in-laws are in Arizona, and they came up to stay with us for a week after our child was born. And my mother-in-law is an amazing cook, and she made us the whole Mexican taco spread and soup, and it was amazing.
So my friend Jason, who was in your comedy, he used to live in Phoenix, Arizona, and I used to always stay at his house when I was out there. And I met friends out there on one of his motorcycle riding, and we went to this like taco stand. I mean, some of the greatest tacos I've ever had. This hole in the wall taco stand, and Chandler, Arizona. Yeah, interesting. How about beer or wine?
Wine.
Wine, red or white?
White.
Where do you get your wine from? I'm curious.
Total Wine. I don't know if you guys have them down in Texas. But...
We do. As a matter of fact, Total Wine. And the reason I love Total Wine is it is the one place that I can get some of the moonshine I like in different parts of the country. I'm a moonshine guy.
Interesting. I have to give it a shot. Yeah, they're because they have everything, and I have celiac disease, so I have to get gluten-free like beer and that seltzers and that kind of stuff. And they've just have the best selection of gluten-free alcoholic beverages in the one-stop shop. So it's kind of a no-brainer.
Cool. All right, next one we move on. Would you rather take a shower or a bath?
Shower.
Yeah, me too. Shower person. Bath is just, to me, it's just disgusting. Who does a bath? Anyway. How about heels or boots?
Boots.
Wait a minute. Like, you realize, Texas and the kind of boots I'm talking about right now, girl?
Oh, I'm thinking like winter boots. Minnesota, remember?
I had a girl out from Wisconsin last week, and she was like, no, boots. I'm coming down to Texas. I'm going to wear them Western boots like you. And what was that girl I had on last week that was from Minnesota? I can't even remember her name now. Was it? It was a girl named Debbie, I think. Debbie. Yeah, I think anyway. It might have been Sarah. I can't remember. So anyway, my next one on here is the controversial one that everyone starts a fight over, and that is the toilet paper at your house. Does it go over on the roll or under?
Oh, over?
Good answer.
Maybe. Let's go with that.
So, Kelly, that's the question. And when I ask on the show, I've had people on here who are like rainbows and unicorns and lovey-dovey everything. You ask that question and fangs come out.
They're ready to throw down?
Yeah, they're ready to throw. I'm like, dude, what happened to Mr. Love and respect of the whole world there, buddy? Kind of lost that over where your toilet paper goes. Huh?
It can get heated real quick.
Yeah.
Don't get the answer wrong.
The favorite answer I had was this girl, Cammie from New England. And she said, she's a single girl. And she said, listen, I'm single. If I go to a guy's house and I'm dating him, and after I change that toilet paper from under to over 3 times, I break up with him. The relationship's going nowhere.
At least you have your priorities.
My last one, a controversial one at that. All right. And yes, I even asked the girls this one. I'm not asking you whether you wear them. It's just what you prefer.
Okay.
Boxers or briefs?
Boxers.
Your husband knows that, right?
He does.
So I've had interesting conversations where like, you know what I mean? Well, yes, my husband's listening. I've had that one. The other one I had was, well, by the time I get my man there, I want him with nothing on. Yeah, I've had some interesting ones too. What was the one girl said, "How did you know what I was wearing right now?" And I'm like, "Whoa!"
Cross the line.
And then I had a guy that we had a 20-minute long conversation at the end about what underwear we wear and why. And I'm like, only I can have a business show and talk with a guy for 20 minutes about the underwear we wear. Well, anyway, Kelly, it's been fun having you on the show today. Great getting to know you and really find out a lot about what you do and how you help people and that you have a good heart. What is, I want you to repeat the website one more time so those listening, both audio and video, can get a hold of you and some want to take this to the next level.
Absolutely. You guys can find me at WITT and company.com.
Cool.
And thank you so much for having me on. This was a fun chat.
Yeah, I thank you for being my guest, taking time out of your schedule today to do that for me. And I appreciate it really much. So
thanks.
To you, the guest, I want to thank you guys for stopping by today. Whether you watch this live or you're watching the replay, do me a favor, subscribe to where you get your podcasts as well as to our YouTube channel. I'm Tim Gillette with the Tim Gillette Show, and I will be back with another coolest person on the planet real soon. In the meantime, have a great day, guys. We'll see you later. Bye.